Hi Stampers, this is Trevis. Today is Video Friday, and so today we're going to make a vintage card. I'm going to use a lot of different stamp sets. Some of them are new. Some of them are carried over, and I always think of very vanilla when I think of vintage. I don't know why, because I can use basic white, but I always think of vanilla. So the stamp sets that I'm going to use today, I'm going to use hand pen Petals. Okay, so this was one that was still in the spring mini catalog, carried over to the big catalog. A new stamp set is called Days to Remember. Okay, I love this stamp set. I'm a scrapbooker too, so I guess I see this and I see all these numbers and months and cute little stars and balloons, and I think, there you go. And then I'm going to use Tasteful Touches. So Tasteful Touches is carried over from last catalog, which is cool. I'm not going to use a whole lot from there. I'm just going to use one stamp from there, but I'm going to make a vintage card, and it's going to be kind of a collage card. I hope you like it. I like that look. I think some people call it shabby chic. I call it more vintage, but okay, so let's get started today. I have a lot of product on my table. So, and that being said, I'm also going to use some dies today. So, okay, so first of all, what colors am I going to use? I'm going to use, Gorgeous Grape, Crumb Cake, and Memento Black, okay, which is a very bold black when you're trying to make a vintage card. So I'm going to show you my little trick with that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take my crumb cake. This is a half a sheet of crumb cake. I'm going to fold this in half. So this is 5.5 by 8.5, and it becomes half of that. So there's my folded. It's going to be my card. And then I have my Very Vanilla. This is 5 by 3 3/4, and I actually ran it through the Meadow Moments embossing folder. Okay, so this was in last catalog. There's two of them. This one, they're small like this, and you can use your mini cut and emboss, your Pee-wee, if you have it. You don't have to, though. If you have a regular cut and emboss or Big Shot, you can use that. And so what I did was I ran it through so that just half of it was covered. Okay, so I have that. I also have, I cut out one of the Brilliant Wings butterflies. And I did use Highland Heather cardstock. So I did not stamp it first. I just cut it out with the dies. So the Brilliant Wings, I'll show you how many dies there are in here. We have 12 dies. One of them is huge. It's this big giant one. Okay, so we have that. That cuts out the outline of the butterflies. But then we have all these detail butterflies. And oh my goodness. So this is the one I used, the biggest one. I did cut that out ahead of time, so you don't have to watch me doing that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a sponge dauber, and I am going to color this with Gorgeous Grape, which is the darker of the two. Highland Heather is the lighter, and Gorgeous Grape is the darker color. So what I'm going to do now is just ink up my sponge dauber. And you can see I haven't punched everything out yet. And actually, it works better if you don't. I mean, if they are, that's fine. But what we're going to do is just sponge the edges of the butterfly wings, nice and dark. Okay, so they're nice and dark purple. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do the edges. All right, so the daubers still have their place in our stamping, right? We have the blending brushes, which I'm going to use here in a minute, but the daubers still have their place, and this is perfect for it because you can really get in there and burnish some color onto your, and that just wants to keep curling up on me. Okay, so we're done with that. I'm actually done with this stamp pad, so I'm going to close that up. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and, I didn't bring my brush over, so I'm just going to poke these little details out because I do want it poked out. I left them intact just while I was sponging. Okay, so now I'm going to punch them out. They come out really easy. I don't know if you guys have found, but with the new cut and emboss, wow, it seems like the dies are just so much better to use. The dies come out so much better and easier. And sometimes I still, on these details, I still run them through, you know, twice. But basically, I am thrilled with the way that these dies are cutting now. We had detail dies in the past, and oh, they just would, you know, deal you a fit sometimes. So a lot of people were hesitant buying detail dies, and now look how beautiful that is. Okay, so we'll get rid of all these little pieces of trash. All right. Okay, so I have that done. I'll put that aside. Now I get to work on this piece, and I am excited about this because this can be, I just want to show you the beauty that you can bring into a piece of cardstock. I'm going to open my crumb cake, and what I'm going to do now is I am going to use my blending brush, okay, and I'm going to pull up my ink. Okay, so I have one I designate for like browns and grays and those colors, and I'm going to take off a little bit of that, and I'm going to, oops, it just fell, a little piece of cardstock. I am going to just go over this, and by doing this, it's just going to, what's popped up, and it's kind of coordinates really well. It's got little butterflies and little flowers, and you're going to see, I'm going to use, when I use those stamps, those other stamps, how cool it's going to be. Okay. All right. Looking good. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my memento pad. And as I said, really bold black isn't always like the most vintage color to me. So I am going to use the flower from, where is the flower? What did I do with it? Oh, hang on, I already mounted it, and it's right here. Okay, so I'm going to use this flower from Hand Penned Petals, and I'm going to ink it up, okay, with Memento Black because I'm going to color it with some blends. We don't have a gray memento. We only have black. So what would you do? Stamp it off once. And by doing that, it brings in a really beautiful light gray. Okay, so it's not as bold and black. All right. So now what I want to do is I just want to color that in with my blends. And I picked 3 of the new in colors. I love, love, love these new colors. So this is the light fresh freesia. I have the light pale papaya and the light soft succulent. And I'm just going to color these in real quick. So I'm going to use the brush tip. I usually almost always use the brush tip. And I'm just going to color these in. I'm going to do the small flowers in fresh freesia. I'm going to do the big flowers in pale papaya. Okay. I'm going to do the centers in soft fresh freesia. All right. And now I'm just going, you see how I'm using the side? So you do want to use the side of your blends. You will save yourself grief. You do it this way, the tips will stay nice until the very end, as long as you don't do that. Okay, and then I'm just going to use our soft succulent. This may be my favorite green ever. Love this green. Kind of almost the color of my room, maybe. Well, my room might have a little more turquoise in it. I'm just going to color these leaves in. Because this is a vintage card, you know, you don't have to be like, ooh, super careful. Okay, all done with that. All right, so now I'm going to let that dry for just a second. I didn't do any blending really with the light and dark, so it's just alcohol. It has to evaporate a little bit, so I'm going to let that happen. Then I'm going to pick up this piece of cardstock that fell on the floor. And this is very vanilla, and it's a 2 by 1.5 inch. And you're like, well, what good is that, Trevis? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crumb cake and I'm just going to really sponge it and burnish some color into it. Just really go for it. Okay. Oops. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to scruff up the edges. Just like this. Scruff the edges and make them nice and rough. You can even go to your pad. You can kind of pull up some ink that way on the edges and really bring in a nice, rich crumb cake. All right, you can always add more. So now I'm going to add some little collage stamping. And what I want to do is, as I said, I love all these numbers. So I have that mounted on a block. And I am randomly going to stamp some numbers on here. I know it sounds bizarre, but I think it turns out pretty cool. Okay. Just like that. All right. Just random. No lining it up perfectly, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is I do want to use another stamp from the Tasteful Touches, and it's this one down here. And I'm going to have that on, I have that on a block also. Now this is a red rubber set, so no big deal, but so I'm going to stamp that on there too. See, starts to collage up a little more. And now I'm going to take this again. I'm going to bring a little more ink in. I'm really going to try to darken this up. And really, because I'm going to put this on my card, and I kind of want this to pop. I want it to be really much darker than the card. Looking good. Look at that. Doesn't that look like an old vintage photo? And then the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to use a stamp from, which stamp was it I was going to use? I think from this set. It's called It's Your Day. So you can make this an anything card, right? If you say It's Your Day. And I'm going to stamp this in the Memento Black by, again, stamping off once and then stamping it. So it's there. It's subtle. It's not in your face. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to scuff up the edges. Now, because this is through the embossing folder, it's going to be a little, you have to be a little more gentle around this. I mean, you can kind of, if it tears a little, it kind of looks cool, okay? But you don't want to, like, just rip the heck out of it, right? I don't. You might want to, and that's cool. If that's your style, go for it. I mean, everybody has their own style. And I'm just throwing things out here for you to try. All right. Oopsie, I ripped that. That's okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to look good when it's all back together. Actually, I like the ends kind of roughed up more. Okay. Now, after you do that, you can really put some ink on there because it's going to really grab the ink now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really do those edges. Now look at that. Looks like old newspaper, right? An old vintage newspaper. Hello, I love it. Okay, I'm going to go over this to soften it. I'm even going to go over what I inked, what I colored in with my blends, and I'm going to soften it. Get those corners, really get those corners. Woo-hee. I think that's gorgeous. Okay. All right. I think I'm done stamping. I think now we get to assemble our card. So what I want to do is I just want to take this and glue it down. So I'm going to use my adhesive. And I'm going to glue it really close to the edge, just like that. Okay, and then I have a piece of soft suede. And what I want to do now is I want to adhere this, and I'm going to put the adhesive on here, just a little bit backwards probably from what usually you do. But I don't want to tear you know, because that's been run through the embossing folder. I don't want to tear it. So this is, as I told you, the very vanilla is 5 by 3 3/4. So your soft suede is just a smidge bigger, not a lot. So you have a very small edge. And then I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this because I want this popped up on my card base. Okay. And there's 2 more things that are going to make this card just so stinking cute. Okay, so hang in there with me. Now I am going to mount this onto my card base. So it's got a nice wide border. And I have my butterfly. And I'm going to use our white glue, our Tombow multi-purpose glue. And I'm just going to put glue in there. And up to here. And up to there. And by doing that, it's going to stick up a little bit, but it's not. It's going to be adhered nicely. Okay, so I'm going to add that. Okay, and you want to hold it down until it's glued down. So it's really sticking. Okay, so this basically is sticking up a little bit, and these could stick up a little bit. Now I'm going to use our metallic pearls. Can you believe it that these metallic pearls are carried over again this year? Hallelujah. I love them. They're gold and silver. I use the gold the most. I don't know how many packs of these I've gone through because the gold I use all the time. And now I'm just going to use my take your pick tool. And I'm going to pick up some of these. And I'm going to use put one here. And I think I'm going to end up using like 7 of these. So that's why they go so fast. One in this corner, way up in the corner. Okay. Very subtle. I thought, oh, maybe I could use the silver on this. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, I think I need the gold. The gold goes so well with the crumb cake. Now I'm going to put 3 down the butterfly's body. So I love that the dies, I mean, you can put as many as you want on the body. I'm just going to put 3. You could keep going if you wanted. Oh, look, there's one of these that did not poke out. Hello. Okay, I am done with the card. I am not using any more. I think it speaks for itself. I don't want to do any shine or glitz. I want it to be very subtle and shabby chic. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the card today, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye.